Hey, InterVarsity alumni. This is After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. This is both an exciting and potentially tricky transition that you're making, and you might feel a little unsure about the coming weeks and months. We're here to provide you with expert advice, practical skills, and plenty of encouragement as you learn how to keep saying yes to Jesus in your new context. This is After 4, and this podcast is for you, alumni. What's up, alumni? Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele. Hey, we're taking a short break from the longer form series that we typically do, and we're bringing you the first part of a summer sub-series, One Simple Way to Stay Connected. At one time or another after graduation, we all feel the distance between us and our chapter back on campus. We miss those regular rhythms, we miss the people that we hung out with, and we miss having a direct impact on campus with Jesus. Now, it's still May, so you're probably still celebrating graduation and haven't quite gotten into the missing your chapter phase yet. That's great, no problem. Just consider this a preventative measure, an opportunity to be proactive, even while you're still in celebration mode. Today, I'm talking with Luke and Ryan, a couple coworkers of mine on our Alumni Team, and we're going to share about giving to your chapter account as one simple way to stay connected to your chapter, and as a way to continue your own discipleship journey with Jesus. Here's Ryan and Luke, and this one's for you, alumni. Ryan and Luke, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much for having us.
So glad that you're here. I mean, it's rare that I get to talk to people that I know, let alone people that I work with. So this is a special treat for me that we get to do this.
It's a Wednesday for us. Yeah, we get to talk to you all the time, but we're really happy to do so while being recorded.
I mean, I feel like I get to talk to a celebrity in his natural element.
Yes. Yeah, seeing a podcaster in the wild.
Right.
Here we go.
Right.
I think your voice is deeper.
Exactly. Well, so I know you guys fairly well, but help us get to know you. Who are you, Ryan and Luke? Luke and Ryan, introduce us.
Go ahead, Luke.
Luke Olson, been on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship for 15 years, inching closer to 16. Married, 5 kids, live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and probably 10 years ago, fell headlong into gardening as a hobby. If you judge me by stature, you wouldn't think, oh, that guy gardens. But I garden. I garden hard. So probably number one hobby. I do cook as well. And if you look at me, you go, oh, he definitely cooks. So that one fits. That's a hobby that fits.
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Lospoluto. I've been with InterVarsity for also 15, going into 16 years. I live in Rhode Island, but I used to live in Milwaukee. That's where I was on campus for 5 years at Marquette University. And let's see, I'm also married. I have 3 kids. Things I like to do, John and I, we connect on sports cards.
That's right, we do.
My best friend and I have a little eBay business around sports cards, and my kids have tens of thousands of Pokemon cards, probably.
Wow. Okay.
It's a problem.
That's an impressive collection. Tens of thousands just of Pokemon. Well, we're getting to the good stuff right off the top here.
Yes.
Nice. Well, in addition to all of these things, you guys also work for InterVarsity's Alumni Team. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are like really tied very closely to some of the work that both of you are doing with and alongside alumni. And so over the course of this summer, we're going to have a few different episodes, conversations around one simple way to stay connected to your chapter, to stay connected to InterVarsity. And today, that one simple way that we're talking about is through giving. So let's just start big picture here. Luke and Ryan, how does giving help you stay connected with your chapter? I mean, most people, I think you would hear giving, and what comes to mind is, okay, I'm supporting my chapter, and that's like supporting is good. But how does giving actually help you stay connected with your chapter, with your staff, and with the ministry that's happening on campus?
Yeah, I think typically we love our chapters, we love our campuses, we pray for them. There are other ways to support them. When we give, it's a much more holistic support, right? I'm aligning not just my prayers. If I'm volunteering, it's not just my time. I'm aligning my treasure, right? I'm aligning all the things that God has provided me with towards something I really care about and that God really cares about. So, if we're doing all those other things and we're not giving, like there's not a full kind of holistic alignment of the resources God has provided for me. When I'm giving brings joy, but it also creates sacrifice. And so when my gift to my alma mater chapter gets drawn, it's a great way to remind me to pray, right? I'm actually pulled in deeper when I'm giving than if it's just on my prayer list, because I'm sacrificing for the sake of the students on that campus, which pulls me deeper and gives me that holistic partnership with what God is doing on campus through InterVarsity.
Yeah, it definitely feels like financial giving is an investment that you feel in a different way than you do other things. And I would say maybe not for everybody, but maybe especially after you first graduate, that you might have this feeling that like my resources are really small right now. And so like if you're going to notice. If you give, you're going to notice. And that is going to continue drawing your attention back to campus of like, there are a million ways I could use this right after I graduate, but I'm choosing to invest it in my campus. Oh, and now I'm being mindful of my campus in a way that I wasn't that I wouldn't have been before.
I think there's a status change too. I think, like you said, when you first graduate, when you're a student and maybe you have a staff worker and they're being supported by people and you maybe vaguely understand or experience that, right? Hopefully it's not vaguely. Hopefully your staff worker talked about fundraising and their MPD, as we call it in InterVarsity. But you probably personally experienced it in scholarships, right? Going to chapter camp, going to conferences. And there were these people out there that made this ministry here that I'm experiencing possible. And it's a me and them, right? And now when I graduate, I actually get to join. My status is changing from I'm the recipient, I'm the beneficiary, to I get to be a part of those people who are out there anonymously in many cases, right? Pouring resources into new students that will benefit from that. And so you're in some ways crossing a threshold of a different status. Like those people, I'm so glad for them. Oh, now I get to be one of them. It's a different status.
It's the difference between like, if you're a guest in my house, you don't do dishes. Like I'm not like, this is for you, right? So you don't do dishes.
Yeah.
But ask my kids if they get out of dishes. The answer is no, right? Like like you cross this threshold. As a student, this whole thing is for you, right? Like we're putting so much effort into this ministry that's totally aimed to give you resources and disciple you and teach you lifelong faithfulness to Jesus. The moment that you've kind of moved past being the consumer side of that, you're doing dishes, right? Like you're rolling up your sleeves and you're part of this family, and contribute in a different way. And I think that's a really neat movement for people.
Yeah. Now, stepping into a place of financial investment, you have a financial stake in what happens on campus. And we know that finances are very closely tied to the heart.
Indeed.
And when your money is going into that space, it means that your heart is tied in a very meaningful and important way to your chapter into that ministry.
Giving, even if it's a little bit, so like if you're just graduating, like what I used to tell students when they were graduating and we would talk about giving is the generosity switch doesn't flip, right? So the day you get your first big paycheck, it's not like, oh my goodness, look how wealthy I am. I'm going to give half of this away, right? That's not how that works, right? Generosity is forged. Actually, a generous heart is forged in the I don't have much parts of your life, right? And so there's a discipleship piece to giving, like to exercise your generosity muscle. But then also, as we're talking about staying connected to your chapter just a little bit, right? Even if you can't give a lot, whether it's giving a scholarship for students, other students to go to camps and conferences, or it's giving $10 a month, right, to your chapter account, helps deepen that connection for you after graduation. And even though it's little, it's a step of faith. It is a key action that can lead to deeper and deeper and greater partnership in the future for you, and deeper connection as you go forward.
Yeah, giving is galvanizing. Like you can speak about something until you're blue in the face, but when you are putting skin in the game with your finances, it's like, I believe in this and I want to see this move forward until Jesus returns.
Totally.
And so I'm bought in. As we think about the realities of this, you guys are tied deeply into people doing this all the time, into people saying, yes, I want to support my chapter and I want to do it for a long time and I want to do it right after I graduate. Do you have some stories that you can share of, here are places where people stayed connected to their chapter because of giving, or places where they've seen where chapters have reported blessing coming out of their ministry on campus because of their alumni investing in what's happening on campus after they graduate? Tell us a story or two.
I want to tell a personal story for me.
Great.
Since doing alumni work, my wife and I have supported our alma mater, University of Rhode Island, and where I was on staff at Marquette as well. We've supported other people and other accounts in InterVarsity. But recently, my alma mater, the URI chapter, shut down.
Oh.
And there's no more, InterVarsity has no more ministry at URI. So if you're listening to this, you can pray that the Lord will bring InterVarsity back to URI. But the staff, the area director, contacted me and said, you want to move your support somewhere else? And Felicia, my wife, and I said, no, we want to keep it at URI because we love URI, and it will remind us to pray that the work will return to URI. And there's other ministries at URI, so it's not without a gospel witness. But right, even though there's no work there, we want to keep supporting it, because when someone does come to work for InterVarsity at URI, boy, they're going to have a much easier time getting on campus because we started there. So that's a personal story for us. Story that comes to mind is actually a University of Virginia. So during the pandemic, they stopped doing conferences. They stopped doing camp. They stopped doing their freshman retreat. And when they came back from the pandemic, things are getting back to normal. They had invited during COVID a bunch of alumni to give to their chapter account and support the ministry there. And because alumni said yes and started giving during the pandemic, when the ministry was back, they wanted to reinstitute their freshman retreat. There's lots of resistance to gathering at all. But because of the generosity of their alumni giving, they're able to offer a lot of scholarships, and they got something. Wow. I don't remember the number, Luke, if you remember the number, but it was something like 20 to 40, somewhere in there, like freshmen to say yes to going to the freshman retreat because they got all this scholarship money. It was low cost. People could just say yes, sign up and go. And it started this revitalization of their ministry after the struggle of COVID. And that's all because alumni said yes to giving and started giving during that time. And it helped relaunch the ministry at UVA.
Wow. I love that.
Without having a specific ready-made example at hand, I mean, I can tell you a repeated story across the country is where resources are coming into a chapter account from alumni, even when that chapter goes through, because chapters, they breathe, right? Like they're just there's kind of a cyclical nature to ministry where every now and then a chapter will balloon up and it's great and it lives through its heyday and golden years, and then like it slims down and it suffers and may even, take a nap for a few years. But when those resources are there consistently, the fellowship is like active, right? You've got all this great cloud of alumni around it saying, we're here, we're keeping the candle lit, and waiting in hopefulness for when God moves again on the campus. And then it inevitably does. And when it does, there are resources there ready to it leapfrogs. It goes so much faster than in places where, you pretty much have to start over and reinvent the wheel.
What I love about the stories that you guys are telling is that your way of staying connected and partnering with your chapter, it isn't just like putting money into the party fund so that the party can keep going on campus after you're gone. Like there is that you can be like, we have this great momentum happening on campus. We're seeing God move in this way and this way. And I want to be a part of that going forward in a new way. I'm not on campus anymore, but I want to be a part of that going forward. And I want to hear stories about it and being reminded that even away from campus, I'm a part of these big things, these cool things that God is doing. That's awesome. But it is also a place like, your giving can also be a placeholder for the future of saying like my partnership, my connection to my chapter now is one of faith and looking forward, that even if it is that part of breathing, going to sleep, this URI moment of like, there isn't a chapter right now. Okay. But I trust that the Lord is still there. Always there, 100% of the time, whether or not InterVarsity's chapter is active. But here's a way that I can stand in faith and say, the Lord is moving, and I want to be prepared. I want our chapter to be prepared when it comes back and is ready to jump into the game again. And those are two very different but very powerful and meaningful ways to stay connected. And I love that both of those are true.
Creates tremendous sticking power. And I do think that longevity really can happen when an alumni community just says like, we're not letting go of the rope. This thing's going to live. It's going to live through drought and through famine and through everything.
Yes. These are great stories. Let's talk about the alumni who are listening right now, and let's give them an actionable step. How can they step into if they aren't already, how can they step into this one way of staying connected to their chapter?
The obvious and easy one is, if you haven't done so already, consider becoming a monthly, like a regular, consistent supporter at whatever level you can joyfully do so. Become a supporter of your chapter account. You can search it up on the giving page. That's easy enough to do. But maybe at a second level, because this should also cultivate relationships, reach out to your old friends in the chapter and remember together what God did for you on campus and consider encouraging them to do the same thing.
For some of us, like our staff aren't on staff anymore, right? But we still want to support the chapter. So supporting your typing in your chapter and supporting your chapter account allows for longevity of partnership with what God's doing at that campus, regardless of who's on staff there. Find out who the current staff is, reach out to them. Tell them you're praying for them. Tell them why you're supporting them. I think to add to what Luke said too is spend some time with Jesus thinking about your giving. We just did a pledging season at my church, and the whole point of it was not, the pledge was just the piece at the end. The whole point was to spend time with Jesus, asking him about your money and making space. And so I think, yes, obviously, because we work for InterVarsity, we want you to give to InterVarsity. But more than that, we want our alumni to be people of God who are generous and who view resources, including our money, a biblical way, the way that Jesus teaches us to view our resources. So I think spend time with Jesus, asking him about your budget, asking him about your giving, being intentional. Yeah, give to your alma mater. Hopefully Jesus tells you to do that. If he tells you to give somewhere else, you should listen to him over us. But I know that, our alumni have been impacted by InterVarsity. It's a great place to give. And even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just $10 a quarter at $10 a month, it's going to draw you in, right? When you get the prayer letter from that staff or that chapter, Because you're giving, you're less likely to just like click delete when you get there, because like, oh, I'm giving to that. I should read what God's doing there. And so even just a little bit draws you in. It creates deeper partnership and deeper engagement, deeper connection. And I love what Luke said. Text your friends from InterVarsity. Like, use it as a reminder that those relationships are really great. And even though you might live different places now.
Guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you sharing, helping us zero in on this is one simple way that we can stay connected to our chapter. And it's one way that is not just about us. It is great for us to stay connected. It is also really exciting to be a part of motivating and encouraging the ministry that the Lord is doing through our chapter on campus, moving it forward, getting to be a part of that, even if we're no longer on leadership, if we're not going to camps, if we are not doing fill in the blank thing that we used to do before graduation. Here's one simple way that we can still be a part of what's happening. And I appreciate you guys helping make that accessible and make a lot of sense.
You can also do those other things. If you want to come on staff with InterVarsity and still go to camp and conferences and meet with students, you're welcome to come do those things as well.
Please. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks, John.
Two things stand out to me here. First, giving to our chapter aligns our resources with things that we care about and that God cares about. Even if we're not on campus anymore, our hearts, our minds, and our bank accounts are connected to the work that God is doing through our chapter back on campus. And as a result, we still get to be involved in what's happening back on campus. Second, Ryan said that a generous heart is forged in the I don't have much parts of your life. I'm guessing that many of you look at your resources right now after graduation and say, I don't have much. And you truly may not. Many of you have loans that you're trying to figure out. Inflation has gone nuts over the last few years. You want to save for a house, save for retirement. I get it, and I affirm the financial realities that you're facing. I graduated with $50,000 in student loan debt. It was overwhelming. I get it. But now is the time to start practicing generosity, even if all you have is something small to give. Remember that the gift Jesus affirmed at the temple in Mark 12 was the widow's 2 copper coins, worth very little, but given out of her lack and not out of her abundance. So don't wait for some generosity switch to get flipped in the back of your head. Don't wait for when it feels like you can finally give a gift that's big enough to quote unquote actually matter. We serve a God who will use whatever you have available that's given with joy, and the gift you give will change your campus, it will change your chapter, and it will change you. So if you aren't already doing it, consider following the link in the show notes, search for your chapter account, text or email your campus staff if you don't know it, or send the alumni team an email. I'll link it to the show notes and we'll help you find it. And whatever gift you can give joyfully, set it up today. Luke and Ryan, thanks so much for helping us stay connected to our chapters through giving. On Alumni, come back next week for my chat with Chase Reed, another alumni team member who's going to help us stay connected to our chapter through advocacy and Called to Campus Sunday. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today, alumni. If there was anything that you learned, really enjoyed, or that encouraged you from today's episode, would you send us a DM or tag us in a story? We'd love to hear about it. You can find us at After4Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And if you haven't already, take just a second to unlock your phone and subscribe to the podcast. If your platform lets you, leave us a rating and a review. And if you like what we're doing here, share us with your InterVarsity or other post-graduation friends. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the after, alumni.